Hello, everyone. It is another episode of Dungeons and Dragons for Dingbats. And we're going to be going over some more things necessary to create your character. Next episode should be more in detail of how to create your character, but let's get on with it. I gotta actually click the button. Backgrounds. Backgrounds are an essential part of character creation, granting specific buffs and proficiencies that can flesh out your character. One of these backgrounds also gives some ideals, bonds, and character flaw options. Uh, Most backgrounds give proficiencies in skills, tools, or languages that can give your character a little bit more flair. Features, they can general features that affect character role playing, giving your character some more opportunities. We'll discuss those later. And characteristics. These are ideals and bonds meant purely to give the player a foundation on how to play their character. We're not going over these characteristics. We can do so in a later episode. We might do a shorter videos on like each specific background, um, but it would be a little bit more intensive, and I don't feel like it's as required to do the characteristics. But here we go into backgrounds. You've got the acolyte, who the acolyte serves servants to a temple, such as a priest in training, a cleric, or a monastic sage. Work with your DM determining which deity and temple your character may follow and serve in. Proficiencies, insight, and religion, and no proficiencies in tools, but knows any two languages. You and your party can expect to receive free healing from temples, though you must require any material components and spells. That's for a later episode. You may also request non-combatant help from allied priests, so information about lore, things of that nature. And equipment, you start with a holy symbol, a prayer book, incense, vestments, common clothes, and 15 gold pieces. The charlatan maintain a false identity about themselves. Either they act as some sort of spy or perhaps refugee or run away from the law. They may also act as peddlers of cheap tricks and ointment to make for great liars. Proficiency, deception, and sleight of hand. They have the proficiency in the disguise kit and forgery kit, and then no languages. You have a second uh, identity you can disguise yourself as. You can also make forgeries of documents you've seen before. And you come with fine clothes, a disguise kit, the tools of a con, like some ointment or deck of cards. You could even do like a chess con or something like that. And 15 gold pieces. Criminals. Criminals act as assassins, thieves, smugglers, and more. They're not necessarily evil, but can be just simply rebels against a tyrannical government. Or they could just be a pure evil character that kills for whatever they want. Deception and stealth proficiencies, gaming set, and thieves' tools for tool proficiencies, and no languages. Features, you have a criminal contact who can be used to relay messages to underground criminal networks. Note kind of how all these features act as kind of DM or role playing tools. So, like, you could get in contact with this contact and be like, hey, what's the underground life in the city? And can you get me in contact with who's in charge or whatever? Or charlatan, you might be able to disguise yourself better. Um, Things of that nature. Equipment, you come with a crowbar, dark common clothes with a hood, and 15 gold pieces. Pretty simple equipment meant to stay hidden and break into things. Entertainers act as traveling storytellers, performers of martial arts, or playwrights. Any way commoners or nobles can be entertained, that's the entertainer will capitalize on it. Sorry about the typo. So this could be like a comedian. We've got an entertainer in the party I'm playing in now who's like a pro wrestler, is the idea. Entertainers can be quite interesting characters to play. They get proficiencies in acrobatics and performance, and one instrument and a disguise kit. They don't learn any additional languages. But if you perform at inns or taverns, you can expect to receive free lodging and food of modest accommodations. That is assuming that you do perform each night, whether it's a play, good story, something of that ilk. So you're going to have to role play to get that free lodging. And equipment, you get one musical instrument, the favor of admirer, such as a lock of hair or a love letter, a costume, and 15 gold pieces. Folk hero. You are the small town hero of a village, perhaps from defending the town against a raid, defeating a ferocious monster, or perhaps just saving a local cat from the tree. Um, think of, I really think of Sam from Lord of the Rings when I think of folk hero. Like he's definitely a heroic character, but he's not wide. He's not the main character hero. Um, to be fair, when you're starting off in Dungeons and Dragons, most of your characters should not be, oh, I am the king of this place, or I am the greatest of this, because you're starting maybe as a level 1 character. But that's another point. Proficiencies: animal handling and survival, tools of artisans' tools, and land vehicles. No languages. Um, the common people will offer lodging and protection from the law, provided they're not putting themselves in any serious risk. So, um, you can get some help from the common folk, and the equipment you get: any artisan's tools. These are things like stonemasons, things of that nature. We'll go into more detail on that in an equipment video. Shovel, iron pot, common clothes, and 10 gold pieces. Then you've got the hermit. You're a secluded character, either banished from society or choosing a solitary life to either find inner peace or because you just dislike the hubbub of the city. Proficiencies: you've got medicine and religion. Tools: you've got the herbalist kit, and then any one language. Through meditation, you've uncovered some secret of the universe known only to be by you, be it scientific, religious, or metaphysical. Maybe you found the concept of a round world when everyone else thinks it's flat. Maybe you thought of some higher state of consciousness or something like that. You'll work with your DM on that. Equipment: you've got your scrolls of notes, so all the notes you've written down about your studies, a winter blanket, common clothes, an herbalist kit, and 5 gold pieces. On to noble. You're some sort of you're some sort from a noble birth. Whether you be duke or duchess, prince or princess, or a dispossessed king or queen, that being that your kingdom was destroyed. Whether you be from a minor fief or a major kingdom, you come from a position of privilege. Skills with that: you get history and persuasion, tools, a gaming set, and language, any one. You can obtain an audience with any other noble, assuming, of course, the noble isn't like directly counter to you. So, like, if you go to a town and you're like, "Hey, I'd like to speak to the noble," then most likely they'll be like, "Okay." But if you go to the enemy fortress and be like, "Hey, I demand an audience," maybe not. It's generally assumed you belong in high society. Equipment: this is wrong. It's an insignia, like a signet ring. I want to say 15 gold pieces. My bad. I'm gonna put a pop up over here, um, and you can read it from there. My apologies. I do have work on all of these by hand, and I make mistakes. Sage: you're a researcher, historian, or keeper of knowledge, well read and studied in your area expertise. You may act as a librarian in a town or a local elder that acts as a holder of oral traditions. Proficiencies: in arcana and history, no tool proficiencies, but any 2 languages. If you can't remember information or lore about something, more likely than not, you will know where to find it. Um, that's not necessarily true, but most of the time, if you're like, if I want to know about giants, I'm going to look into this book. Um, Equipment: you have a bottle of ink, a quill, a small knife, a cryptic letter from a friend who poses a question you haven't answered, common clothes, and 10 gold pieces. I didn't want to write the cryptic letter thing out too far. Sailor, as we're reaching the end of this section, you've sailed in or captained a ship, be it a naval battleship, merchant schooner, or a pirate frigate. You know the ways of the sea and can assist in navigation, steering, or other operations regarding watercraft. With that comes the skills of athletics and perception, your navigator's tools, and vehicles' water proficiencies, and the feature of your being able to obtain passage on a ship. though you can't determine the route or directness of the route. It's like you might say, "Hey, I need to get to here," and they'll be like, "Oh, that's on our trade route," but where you've got 8 different stops first. Um, so if you're not in a rush, might be useful. Equipment: belaying pin, which is just a club, 50 feet of silk rope, lucky charm, common clothes, and 10 gold pieces. Soldier: you've served in the military of some fashion, either as untrained militia, a professional footman, or an expert bodyguard. You may be a leader in that particular army as a captain or similar rank. You have athletics and intimidation proficiencies. You are proficient in a gaming set and land vehicles, and no languages in addition to those you start with. Soldiers of lower rank will defer to you and provide equipment temporarily, so you must give them back. You can also gain access to allied fortifications. Equipment: you've got a rank insignia, a trophy from a fallen foe, dice or cards, common clothes, and 10 gold pieces. Urchin: you've grown up on the streets of either a great city, a small village, or you were raised in the wild. You survived through begging, stealing, or scavenging, or a mix of both. You get sleight of hand, stealth, disguise kit, and thieves' tools, and no languages. Now, the grown up in the wild is a little bit more from me, not necessarily from the book, but I think it could be interesting as like a raised by wolves urchin character. Features is you always know the back ways around a city, allowing you and your companions to travel between 2 locations at 2 times speed. Equipment: you've got the small knife, city map, a pet mouse. That's very specific here, so maybe, but you could probably be like, oh, it's actually a pet weasel or whatever. This is probably my. I have a character who is really interesting. Let me know if you want a character build, some examples. Um, and then common clothes, a token from your parents, and common clothes and 10 gold pieces. Note some of the stuff you could go without. So, like, you could be an urchin without a pet mouse. You could even be without a city map. But these are just kind of ideas. Okay, so into a little bit of equipment. This is not going to be super in depth, but just kind of giving you a feel for what um, some armors are. It falls into 3 categories, which characters may be proficient in. So you need to wear armor that you're proficiency in. Light armor typically doesn't give much defense, but one can be stealthy with it. Medium provides balance, and heavy armor gives a lot of defense, but makes it difficult to sneak. Note that all these numbers are AC, known as armor class. We'll be going into more detail about that um, in our combat videos that we'll do, but know right now that a higher value means you're harder to hit. So light armors, you've got padded, which is 11 plus your dexterity modifier. We've talked about that. We'll talk about how to calculate that in your character creation. It does give you disadvantage on stealth. Leather, it's 11 plus your dex modifier, and studded leather, 12 plus dex mod. Before you ask why don't you always get a studded leather, it's because most character creations give you either leather or I don't think any give you padded, honestly. But so you would have to buy that. Medium hide is 12 plus your dex. Chain shirt is 13 plus your dex. And all these are limited at 2 for your dex mod. So you can only get 14 with this, 15. 14 plus dex and disadvantage on stealth. Spiked is 14 plus dex plus disadvantage on stealth. Breastplate is 14 plus dex. And half plate is 15 plus dex but disadvantage. And then heavy, you've got ring mail at 14, chainmail at 16, splint at 17, plate at 18, all giving you disadvantage on stealth. Weapons fall into 4 categories: simple melee, simple range, martial melee, and martial range. We're just going to go over. So some of these vary as to how good they get different traits, and they'll be getting even more traits in this next edition, or the next half edition, this next iteration of the player's handbook. But we're just going to do the damage overview real quick. Again, we'll go into more detail later, probably in our second part of character creation, if I'd have to guess. But we'll do a deep dive in equipment. Club, 1d4 bludgeoning, dagger, 1d4 piercing, great club, 1d8 bludgeoning, Hand axe 1d6 slashing, javelin 1d6 piercing, light hammer 1d4 bludgeoning, mace 1d6 bludgeoning, quarterstaff 1d6 or 1d8 bludgeoning, depending on if you use it with two hands, sickle 1d4 slashing, and spear 1d6 or 1d8 piercing, one-handed or two-handed. Note that two-handed will be on here. I didn't include shields in armor, but it's a separate category. It just adds 2 to your armor class. Simple ranged, you've got the light crossbow with the 1d8 piercing, darts are 1d4 piercing, short bows 1d6 piercing, and slings 1d4 bludgeoning. And then martial melee, lots of weapons. Battle axe 1d10 or 1d8 or 1d10 slashing, depending on two-handed. Flail 1d8 bludgeoning, glaive 1d10 slashing, great axe 1d12 slashing, great sword 2d6 slashing, halberd 1d10 slashing, lance 1d12 piercing, longsword 1d8 or 1d10 slashing, maul 2d6 bludgeoning, morningstar 1d8 piercing, pike 1d10 piercing, rapier 1d8 piercing, scimitar 1d6 slashing, short sword 1d6 piercing, trident 1d6 or 1d8 piercing, war pick 1d8 piercing, warhammer 1d8 or 1d10 bludgeoning, and whip 1d4 slashing. Martial ranged, you've got blowgun, which is 1 piercing. We'll talk about blowguns later, but I think there's some interesting builds you can do with them. Apologies. Hand crossbow 1d4 piercing, heavy crossbow 1d10 piercing, longbow 1d8 piercing, and net is special. Doesn't do any damage, but you can technical people with it. That's it for this episode. Let me know what backgrounds you want your character to play as. I think that will be the most fun way to do this. And what equipment they may have. Just even without knowing what equipment restrictions each class puts on you and so forth. Just kind of what your idea of is for a background and some equipment to go with them. Anyways, regarding the Player's Handbook 2024, I've noticed a lot of the things that I've been covering is going to change. I'm going to continue using the 2014 to do these videos and maybe do a 2024 kind of sub level because it is a lot different and I am excited about it. But let me know whether you want me to fully transition and just restart with the Player's Handbook 2024. Most will remain the same, but or if you want me to continue with the 2014 as it's the most readily available, and just do the 2024 when it becomes more readily available. I've also heard of people getting copyright strikes for reviewing the book, so a little nervous about it. Anyway, please like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know how I did on this episode, and I'll see you in the next one where we'll be going over a bit more character creation. Goodbye. I'll see you later.